performance studio with Ronn McFarlane. He's a world-renowned lutenist. He has over 40 albums to his name. He's Grammy-nominated, and he is here today to help us celebrate St. Patrick's Day, which is going to be happening on Sunday. Welcome, Ron.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here, especially now.
We are wearing our green. We've got our shamrocks, our hats, and I am very excited to hear the music you're going to play, and you're going to be playing from your new album, The Celtic Lute, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Would you like to introduce your first set?
Yes, I'll be playing two pieces. The first is called Carolan's Welcome, which is by Turlough O'Carolan, and then they'll follow that with a great old Irish jig called Banish Misfortune.
Wonderful. Oh, fantastic. Your fingers were moving so fast in that jig. Truly wonderful to watch. If you're just joining us, I'm Deborah Lewharter in the WRTI Performance Studio with Ronn McFarlane, lute player. And if you would like to see Ron's fingers move fast, please go to our website, WRTI.org, click on the post, and we are streaming this performance live on our website, WRTI.org. It's a YouTube link, and you can comment and watch the happenings. Ron, that was wonderful.
Well, thank you. Thanks very much.
I would love to have you talk just a little bit about the first piece written by Turlough O'Carolan, since we're celebrating Irish music for St. Patrick's Day coming up. Who was he?
Well, he was an Irish harper. He was blind either from birth or from an early age. And in fact, playing the harp was a common occupation for someone who was blind at that time. He was born in 1670, lived until 1738. So it's a time when we think of the Baroque masters of the mid to early Baroque, and he was in fact an admirer of Italian Baroque music. You hear in his music not only strains of traditional Irish music, but also a bit of what was going on in the contemporary music in Italy of his time. So the music perhaps of Vivaldi and his contemporaries may have filtered through, and O'Carolan heard that music and incorporated some elements of it into his music.
That's fascinating. I think he's considered the national composer of Ireland.
I think, yes, unofficially, it's absolutely true.
A little bit about you. You were born in West Virginia, you mentioned, and grew up in Maryland, but you came rather late to music. Tell us about that.
Right. I 13, I was in middle school, and I heard a rock band playing and was absolutely enraptured. It was Wipeout by the Surfaris, played by some schoolmates of mine, and I had to get a guitar. I learned guitar, first rock guitar, and then classical guitar after that, and became attracted to the lute after playing lute music on the guitar and really loving it.
So then you became a founder of the Baltimore Consort, also Earhart, very renowned early music groups, and you just took off with the lute, and you are one of the, I think, country's leading lutenists, playing all over the world. Describe your instrument for us. It's such a beautiful looking instrument. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, Ron, do you mind holding that up for us
Sure,
and
be glad
describing
to.
how it's made?
So the lute, for those who can't see it, the lute has a pear-shaped body with a rounded back made of separate strips of wood. It has a neck with frets and a bent back peg box, and the strings run right over that peg box. I have an 18th century style lute, and that means it has 24 strings arranged into 13 courses. So I have a couple of treble strings that are single strings. Then below that, the strings are in pairs, tuned in unison pairs. So you always play two strings together as if they were one. Then in the bass, they're in octave pairs. The treble strings are just tuned to an open D minor chord. And then below that, the bass strings are tuned in a scale. So you can play all those bass notes as open strings as a support to the higher melodies.
Oh, creates such a gorgeous, rich sound. And you were mentioning that because of the shape of the back of the lute.
Yes, the lute vibrates against really around your solar plexus, near your heart. So when you're playing, you're actually feeling the vibrations very intimately of the lute. And it makes it a very, very pleasurable instrument to play.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Well, we would love to hear some more. Tell us what you're going to play next.
Yes, next set we'll combine some Scottish and some Irish tunes. First, the Battle of Harlaw. The Battle of Harlaw actually took place in July of 1411, and this piece was written about 200 years later in memory of all those lost in that ancient battle between Highlanders and Lowlanders in Scotland.
So many battles in Scotland.
Clans. That's right. That'll be followed by two jigs from Ireland, Pipe on the Hob and the Cliffs of Moher, and then two slip jigs from Scotland called Hey My Nanny and Guzzle together.
Okay.
The ending kind of leaves you hanging.
Oh, it was fabulous. I love that ending. Gosh, that's so terrific. If you're just joining us, we're in the WRTI Performance Studio. I'm Deborah Lou Harder with Ronn McFarlane, Grammy-nominated lutenist. He's playing from selections from his new album, The Celtic Lute. I don't know if we can catch this on camera, but it is a wonderful album. And we are celebrating St. Patrick's Day a little bit early here at WRTI. That was so terrific. And is there a difference between Scottish and Irish traditional music, would you say?
There's a lot of overlap between them, but I'd say the differences are that the Scottish tunes often have a bit of more angular type melodies, whereas a lot of the traditional Irish tunes will have more rounded, more rolling type of rhythms. They'll tend to use major thirds more, whereas the Scottish tend to use a lot of open fifths that end up sounding more stark.
Yes.
A lot of double tonics where you're toggling between the 1 and the flatted 7. So again, there's a lot of overlap between them, but those are the distinctions that I can hear.
The Scottish almost sounded more plaintive and I think mournful because of the battles and
Oh, my
all the
goodness,
death
yes.
and bloodshed and things.
It's interesting that was written about 200 years after the battle. And as,
They still
as the
remember it.
descendant of Scots, I can say we don't forget.
Yeah, I guess not. Well, now you are an expert in early music, and why did you decide to make an album of Celtic music?
Well, I have loved traditional Scottish and Irish music for a long time, certainly since the 1970s, when I first started hearing bands like the Bothy Band and the Chieftains and Clannad and similar kind of bands. And then I was delighted to find that there is a body of Scottish lute music, not Irish lute music, but there's a body of about 600 pieces altogether in various manuscripts from the 17th century. And I recorded a couple of CDs of entirely that repertory of Scottish lute music. And yet, it seemed like there were so many great tunes that had never been arranged for the lute. Now, back in the old days, a lot of these tunes weren't conceived for the lute, but rather they were arranged by a lute player who must have fallen in love with one or another tune. And so the Celtic Lute is an album full of tunes that were somehow overlooked by the guys back in the old days. And I'm making these new arrangements, using the old arrangements as my inspiration, but making new arrangements of Scottish and Irish tunes that were never arranged back, say, 400 years ago.
Now, do these tunes have words?
Not that I know of, but many of them may have lost words that I'm not aware of. When you have titles like Guzzle Together.
Yes, I was wondering about
Banish
that one.
Misfortune, it makes you think they must have had some words, but I don't know them. I don't know that they
very
have.
descriptive. It'd be kind of fun to find or even imagine what those words might be. You know, your instrument is a gorgeous instrument, but it fell out of favor, I would say, a little bit after the High Baroque period during
Yes.
J.S. Bach's time because it's just got such a gentle sound and could not really overcome the harpsichord.
It has. And little by little, it became more and more of a solo instrument. When the lute was in vogue, it was a very social instrument that played with all the other, the bowed strings, the wind instruments. And gradually, it ended up playing off by itself in its little corner. And by the end of the 18th century, really no one was playing the lute except for a handful of cranks. So it really is the resurgence of interest in music of earlier times, or the so-called early music movement, that has caused the lute to be seen and heard again.
Why do you think the lute is relevant today? Because I know that you make your own arrangements, such as the Celtic Lute album that we've been hearing from, but also modern music. You're doing your own new compositions. Do you think the lute has a future?
I think it has. I think it's relevant in that it's a very beautiful instrument with a unique voice. As you can hear, it has some qualities that you might associate with a harp, some with maybe a banjo, with a guitar, with a mandolin. It intersects some aspects of those instruments, and yet it has its own separate and unique voice. It's a quiet, intimate instrument in an age where I think we can use more quiet, intimate music making. And I think it has a voice and a future, because such beautiful and I think compelling music can be created for it. We have a body of more than 40,000 pieces that survive from the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries.
Oh, my goodness.
But not much has been written the last 200 years, and I've taken it upon myself to write a few new tunes for it as well, really showing some of its versatility and its ability to play in different styles.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, we would love to hear a few more pieces from your new album, The Celtic Lute, your own arrangements of these traditional Irish and Scottish tunes. What would you like to play for us,
I'm
Ron?
going to play the Monaghan Jig followed by the Kid on the Mountain. And I'm going to have to tune my F sharp to an F natural here because these
Okay.
open bass strings do get retuned whenever you change keys.
Oh, beautiful. That was so much fun. Thank you so much, Ronn McFarlane, for being here at WRTI, sharing your gorgeous arrangements of traditional Irish and Scottish tunes from your new album, The Celtic Lute. I hope everyone has a chance to hear it as often as possible. It's truly wonderful to have you here.
Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
And just a reminder that you can watch Ronn's performance. Everybody listening, just go to our website, WRTI.org, and click on the YouTube link. Thanks so much, Ronn.
Thank you.
Back to you, Bliss.